Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/214, and you can email the show pedalshift@pedalshift.net or call the voicemail hotline at 202-930-1109 and check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 214th edition of the Pedalshift Project. My name's Tim Mooney, and I am super excited to kick off yet another tour journal. And for the next 4 weeks, we are going to be doing the Gap 4x44 loop, and we're going to cover one day each of a really fun ride that was just so enjoyable. I have to say, it seems hard to believe that I hadn't bike toured or done anything on the bike except the C&O in 6 months. 6 months! Look, I love me some C&O, but if you're like me, variety helps keep me sane. So, this month, still in the midst of a global pandemic, spoiler alert, right? That was sticking around the US way longer than any of us wanted. I figured out a safe and responsible way to roll on a different trail, and that's the Great Allegheny Passage, or the Gap. And due to some lucky happenstance, a little math, and, well, as we discover in this episode, a little cheating on the math, I could do a loop where each day was a convenient and Syracuse University numerology-friendly 44 miles. Go Orange. The tour began with some question marks about heat and hydration, and oh yeah, a 24-mile climb to the Eastern Continental Divide. With no climbing in my bicycling regimen since 2019, could I haul me and my fully loaded bike up that hill? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to you. This is the night before the beginning of the tour. The 4x44 Gap Loop. I think that's what we're calling it. And I am currently in wild and wonderful West Virginia. You may be able to hear the post-rain cacophony of birds around here. One of the great joys of having this cabin is that I am quite literally surrounded, ensconced, if you will, with nature, and I enjoy that quite a bit. Tons of different birds. I'm not a bird guy by any stretch of the imagination. My old joke used to be, I don't trust things with hollow bones. And yes, I think almost every bone is hollow, but that's part of the joke. Anyways, point being, not a bird guy, but interested in the birds around here. We've got pileated woodpeckers and a bunch of other things, which you will occasionally see also on the C&O Trail and the Gap, which brings me back to the ride. So I am in the process, which I kind of don't love, but it is the sort of barfing of all of the gear out in one spot just to pull it together and make sure that I've got everything all together here. One of the tricks with living between the place in DC and the place here is making sure that I've got all of the stuff for a bike tour in any given spot. Most of the stuff sort of lives in DC, so I've been slowly bringing it out here as I've been doing the tours that start from here, which, of course, the last one did. This one will, in a way. So it's just making sure that I'm not leaving something that I need behind. This tour, it was really important that I have, as I mentioned, water. And I've got the tank, which I didn't have last time. I think I mentioned that on the preview episode. That's exciting because what that does is it gives me peace of mind. I mean, that's at least a day's worth of water on the hottest day. And I think that that's really important and helpful. I'll make sure that I've got that full from here in a place where I know it's good, safe water. And I'll have that basically for my entire first day, which will get me to Rockwood, Pennsylvania at least. I say at least. I have been noodling. I have been thinking, because of the nature of my pickup being late on Monday night, after sundown probably, that I do have a little more time to play with. The problem is that I don't have enough, I think, to do what would be really awesome. And what would be really awesome would be to make this a full 4-day round trip of the Gap. It's certainly in my capability. The Gap is 150 miles long from end to end. It is therefore 75 miles if you were to split it up into 4-day chunks, or chunks of 4 days. Problem is that, as I've noted before on the podcast, that there is not a great campsite in and around mile marker 75, which is around Ohiopyle. And that's a bummer, because I think that would be a natural spot to do things. The other challenge that goes along with that, of course, is that one of the days that would be ending would be in the city of Pittsburgh. And there isn't, for somebody like me who wants to camp and also wants to avoid coming in contact with folks, I would have to get some form of lodging, which would necessitate contact. And that's sort of off of my list of things that I want to do. There's, of course, the Draveau campground at mile marker 25, give or take. I think it's 25. It's certainly within a few miles of there. So that would be an option, but I think that just throws things off from making this a doable, reasonable trip in that kind of entirety. If I had a 5th day, I think I could totally pull that off. And I could certainly take an extra day off of work. I could do that if I want to, but I'm kind of into the idea of this being a 4-day trip. Minimizing the number of days I'm taking off. I'm just taking off the Friday and the Monday on either end of a weekend. There's something that's nice and symmetrical about that for me. So I think I'm going to stick with the 44 miles. The other additional reason is it's going to be warm. I'll say warm. It's hot. It's going to be hot, but not as hot as it can be, not as hot as it has been. But at the same time, that takes, as I am, as you have heard ad nauseum on the podcast, I don't love bicycling in the heat. I've grown accustomed to it. It's, again, if you want to bike in this region, you've got to bike in the heat. So I think it would be more fun if I just did 44 miles a day. You've noticed that's been a theme of my riding this year. I've done shorter mileage days because I'm not doing the big adventures that I'm more accustomed to doing. I'm kind of cycling less. I don't need to cycle as much. I don't need to make the miles. I've done these trails before, some of them multiple times. So, now it's more like, okay, let's just have some fun with this. Let's have some adventure. And, I love the symmetry of this being 4 days of 44 miles apiece. So I think that's basically what I'm going to end up doing. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I was thinking about something much grander than this. So anyways, that's sort of where I'm at right now. I am, as I had mentioned in the preview episode, definitely going to be riding with the full pannier set. And only just because I want a luxurious amount of space, because I am planning on putting the cold bag into at least one of my panniers. Currently, in my freezer, I have a cold brew that is frozen solid. I also have a half-liter bottle of water that is frozen solid. I will be bringing my I should have done this before. I should have confirmed this. It's either 3 or 4 liters of water in my tank. Plus, I'll be bringing 3 water bottles that I think they all are roughly a half-liter apiece. So I've got plenty of water. A lot of weight's going to be in that water. But I also wanted to bring the cold bag because, maybe bring some adult beverages, things like that. Something to allow me to bring lunch and dinner, which I will, new event here. I had said that I was only going to supply up once on this trip. Well, that was assuming, of course, that I was going to hit a grocery store kind of in day -1 or day 0. I'm going to hit a grocery store, the Martins, the same Martins that I went to on my last trip when I was in Cumberland. I'm going to start my day there. That's where I'm going to get dropped off. I'm going to get the lunch and the dinner for tomorrow there. I think that in the morning, it'll be not very crowded, limiting my exposure. Again, just things that I'm doing, that are part of all of this. I'm going to get everything, get the cold bag all set up. I will, of course, have already gotten the frozen stuff in there. So it'll be pre-chilled, that crazy bag. And then I'm just going to start rolling. I'm just going to go up that big hill over a couple of hours worth, because it takes a couple hours to get to the top of that Eastern Continental Divide. And then it's that nice, long, slow downhill for the rest of the day. And then all of, a good chunk of the day. Really, the downhill is much less noticeable once you get to Connellsville. Between Connellsville and Pittsburgh, there is a small grade that's down, but it's over so many miles, it's impossible to notice. But there is definitely a grade between Ohiopyle and Connellsville, which will be a feature of day 2. So, I think that what this gives me is tons of flexibility. If I want to split up my day, if I'm up and at 'em early in the morning and I'm super stoked to get rolling early, well, maybe I'll be done super early and then I can have a relaxing day in camp. Or maybe if I want to hang out and camp a little bit, that gives me some time. The heat, of course, it's never going to get cooler in any given day than at the beginning of the day. So I think I'm certainly likely to plan on doing some or all of the miles as early as possible. There's always the possibility of splitting up my day depending on where I'm at. Day 2 is interesting because, I could get an early start and end up in Ohiopyle, go down to the river, kind of, enjoy some time down there for a little bit, and then continue on the way down. There's lots of different options. I think I'm going to try to maximize flexibility on all of this. And I do think that there's some advantages to getting to camp early, particularly day 2. Just as I'm sitting here thinking about it, there are a limited number of Adirondacks at the Connellsville spot. And I kind of like to claim whichever one I would like. I don't know if it's going to be crowded. That will be on, of course, Friday. That'll be a Saturday night. So the likelihood of there being folks there is, I would think, a little bit higher, but we'll have to see. So I would like to be able to claim a spot there. I'll have the tent. I can be out in the grass if I need to, but I just have always liked being in the Adirondacks. That's kind of nice to have. A little bit of privacy, added privacy, I suppose. In any event, I'm ready. I'm raring to go. I am excited to bring you all along on all of this, but that's sort of where I'm at. Weather is, as I mentioned, it looks like it's going to be hot, but not as hot. Rain, we just got some today, and we, of course, had the tropical storm roll through the region. It did not hit the areas of the gap that I'm going to be going on. It did very much hit the C&O. So I'm thinking about all of you who are on the C&O this weekend, because you're probably going to have some muddy portions of the trail. But the gap, I think it's going to be all right. Oh, I should mention, I did get a report, and forgive me, I don't have the listener email in front of me, so forgive me for not giving you credit. But there is apparently a new section of trail along the area that I'm going to be going on, resurfaced. Reports are it's a little bit on the soft side, which is my experience, both on the C&O and the Gap. It's a similar, this new surfacing. I call it new. It's the same surface the Gap has always had. But when it's first put down, even though it's compressed down and whatnot, it's got some softness to it. So I am expecting it to be a little bit soft in parts. If we do get some rain, which there's a possibility of getting some scattered showers on Friday, tomorrow, or on my first day, maybe it'll be a little bit soft, but frankly, I'm not too concerned about it. I will be rolling on the same Schwalbe Marathon Pluses that I've been rolling on for a while. I have had half a mind to put the Schwalbe Marathon Supremes on, but one thing that was, and I didn't mention this on the show before, when I got the bike worked on, the mechanic at REI did an amazing job. However, the mechanic also made a few design choices that may or may not screw with my ability to do things in the future. Very nice of this person, but trimmed the ability of the fenders to rise up and give some more clearance. And for me, that's kind of important. As I've mentioned before on the C&O, having extra clearance between your tires and the fender on a muddy section of the trail can be a difference between you moving and not moving. And of course, also that gives me the additional ability to put on a wider, bigger, fatter tire on this bike. And I'm not sure if I've got that capability anymore. No disrespect to the dude at REI, but would have liked that to have been asked of me before it was done. So I may be stuck with these particular set of fenders with this particular set of tires, which is fine. They are awesome tires, and I'm very happy with them. So I think that they will carve a little bit more in a soft gap compared to what I would have had with my wider Marathon Supremes by Schwalbe. That being said, if you are a big fan, if you've been with the show for a minute, those same Schwalbe Marathons, the one time I ever had an issue, the tire explosion. I keep saying the one time. I've had a couple of issues with the Schwalbe Marathon Supremes, and that was one of them, and that was the F it, we're doing it live, I believe. story, which I told many years ago on the pod, so go back and listen for that. In any event, I do not believe in superstition, but if I did, perhaps that's why I wouldn't want to use those. All right, that's enough of me yammering here, but I'm excited here. Day 0 seems like I've got everything I need. I will be, again, getting ready to roll. It's about an hour drive from here. And then it's getting supplies and then rolling up the hill. So next time you hear me, Cumberland, Maryland. Good morning from Cumberland, Maryland. You can hear an intermodal going by here. You may find me using more train lingo lately. I have become fascinated since the pandemic has started with a gentleman who has left this planet doing what he loved, which was riding freight trains. He actually died a few years ago doing it. His name's Stobe the Hobo. Go check out his stuff on YouTube. It is fascinating. I'm not saying that this is a dude that I agree with on a whole bunch of different issues. He's kind of a fascinating cat. Anyways, having been caught by bulls, which is the lingo for the cops, the CSX cops, basically, I was sort of fascinated with the whole concept of what goes on in the freight train situation, the way they enforce rules and stuff like that, and that of course got me into all of that. That is a deep dive, I'm here to tell you. Also, not coincidentally, I don't know what I would call it, but he actually was here in Cumberland for one of his videos, and actually had good things to say about it, which if you do end up following him, you will note he does not like almost any place that he ever went to. Cumberland's got kind of a rough vibe to it, as I've mentioned before on the show. It's actually kind of okay this morning, but it's kind of unfortunate. It was a hub of industry. It was close to a lot of natural resources, so it was a big ticket deal in kind of industrial America. But like so many other stories of industrial America, particularly in this region, that ended, and it's clear the town has seen better times. You know, the bones are good, you know. I keep my guard up in a town like this as I would in any other place, unlike a lot of other parts of small town America, which, for some folks at least, they feel the ability to let their guard down a little bit. I am nearly complete in piecing together my bike. I've got a couple of new pieces, and in addition to it being rebuilt, as I mentioned on the last segment, for good and for bad. I've got a brand new frame bag, because the zipper on that busted. It lasted a couple of years, and it was, I think it was $10 or $12, so good investment. Sometimes, as I've said on the show, you know, invest in good gear and it will last. I think occasionally the opposite is true, where you don't necessarily want to spend a ton of money on stuff because the cheap stuff will behave and last as good as anything else. And I've had some good luck with that with some things, not necessarily everything. I have a new top tube bag, which I'm kind of struggling with right now. It sits above the top tube as opposed to kind of around it. And at first I thought I would like that better, but in retrospect, I'm kind of missing my old one. It just kind of flops around a little bit. It also has one large compartment rather than two, which I think I prefer the two when all is said and done. Weather this morning is good. It's cloudy, and while it is muggy, it's still in the low 70s, so it's actually pretty good. Now I'm an hour away, so maybe about 50-ish miles away, give or take. We did get rain last night, fairly heavy rain at times, but as I was looking at the radar, because I was like, oh, is it going to be wet here in Cumberland? And the answer, surprisingly, is it did not get rain here. I am near a grocery store, but it's one that is a little more janky looking than I would like to hang at. So I'm going to go to the Martins. The Martins also has the added benefit of having a place where I can grab a beer, I think, not for now, but for later. I do have the cold bag rocking, so that's excellent. But yeah, this morning has gone pretty well. I am just about ready to roll here. Basically, it's going to be supply up, get up the hill. It's still even a little foggy here. I will say it's going to be warm going up that hill, but I don't think it'll be too terribly bad. Yeah, at mile marker 0, or 184.5, depending on which side I'm on. I'm on 184.5. I'm on 0. Okay, I just stepped back and forth. Super exciting. Hey, so we're ready to roll. By we, I mean me. But you're coming along for the ride with me. I'm sweating like a pig, and it's not that hot. I got everything all loaded up. Water update. There had been some trail reports given to me that had suggested that some towns have water on. I'm here to tell you that Cumberland is not one of them. So I am very happy to have a metric crap ton of water with me. I'm rolling very heavy because I've got nice cool beverages. I've got my cold bag. I've got tons. I mean, I am not going to run out of things to drink. Let's just put it that way. Barring punctures and disaster, I am all good for hydration. Certainly for today and well into tomorrow, I would think. I'm very, very stoked to be leaving. Cumberland was very nice today. I sometimes have half and half experiences in Cumberland. Today was great. I really like stopping at that Martins. I recommend that as your grocery store of choice if you are going to be here for either a C&O or a Gap supply up. Good supply there. Very reasonable ride from the trail. It's like maybe 7 minutes away. It's on the same side of the tracks as the train station, which means you do have to cross the tracks. You could get caught having to wait for a train, just as a heads up on that. I managed to do well on both coming and going. I didn't have to deal with that, so that's all good. All right, well, hey, Gap 4x44 loop, or what? I keep messing with the order of it in any event. Also, the sign here says that Connellsville is 89 miles, which messes with my 4x44 thing. So I'm just going to ignore it and assume it's wrong, and that it's actually 88 miles. You know, consistency. All right, off we go. About 8 or so miles in, mile marker 8, we'll call it, here on the Great Allegheny Passage. I am drenched in sweat. You know, I've got that sweat line that's basically hitting my belly button. It is my entire torso. I'm not looking my freshest right now. It is the merino wool tee that I've got, so it breathes well. It will hopefully not stink, but I only brought 2 of these. So we'll just have to see how it goes. It might get a rinse tonight. I am standing a mere, we'll call it 20 feet away from a timber rattler underneath a rock. If you were ever wondering if there were venomous snakes along these trails, I'm here to tell you there is one, and it's a good size one too. Interestingly, although I got up within about 6 feet of it to get a good picture of it for you all, it's not rattling. It's not spooked out by me. I was, of course, not trying to aggravate it. I know there are some people out there that are interested in hearing the rattles of a rattlesnake and will aggravate them, and I do not recommend. That is not nice. Also, stupid. So, anyways, very beautiful little reptile there, but I don't want to get anywhere near it because that will end my trip in a hurry. Nice riding, muggy, reasonably decent temperature, no sun. I'm really enjoying it so far. Saw a group of young, I'd say 20-something, which now qualifies as young for me, I suppose, tourists. Big group coming down the hill. I don't know what their beginning, middle, or end of the trip was, but they seemed very happy. And of course, they were going downhill, and I'm going up it. Figure I average about 8 miles per hour coming up this hill fully loaded, and that sounds about right. I'm also not pushing it. I am not in what I would call peak bike touring shape. Even though I've been doing it, as you've heard, there's no need to push. I'm only going 44 miles, and I don't have the compelling need to get up this hill very fast, which allows me to notice things like, say, timber rattlers. So there you go. Hello, hello from the Borden Tunnel. You like the reverb? I just had a nice lunch in Frostburg and ran into a bunch of people for the first time. It feels like all season. There's I believe I'm going to say father-daughter group. They did the whole C&O. She said she was from D.C. I don't know where he's from, but they were fun to talk to. And they're not going to go quite as far as me today, but of course they've been doing a lot more miles than me over the last several days. They're going to be going all the way to Pittsburgh. And so I dropped a bit of gap knowledge on them. And I think they were very happy to hear that their climb is ending soon. Let's see, what else? Ran into another father-son group. He seems to have a lot of knowledge because he studied French in Quebec. That was kind of interesting and fun. And let's see, then there was another group of, I guess I'll call them roadies. They were definitely kitted up and everything, so they were in a wrapping up their ride. They were they were as sweaty as I was, but I think that they worked a lot harder than I did. So yeah, kind of fun to be back in the tunnels again. Boy, it's nice and cool in here and it's getting nice and hot. You might be hearing a lot of clothing movement. That's because I'm putting on my sun sleeves for the first time today because the sun is definitely out. Kimberly was telling me there was a big thunderstorm back down in Hedgesville, near where the cabin is. So that's good to know that I missed that. It is not raining up here, and I'm grateful for that. Although I will say, I wouldn't mind a little bit of cooling down. This is definitely a heat index kind of ride. It's not as hot as I would say it would be normally this time of year. But boy, the mugginess sure as heck makes up for it. I've had a ton of water, and that's been good for me. So, well, in any event, packing up, getting through the tunnel, soon to be at the Eastern Continental Divide. It seems that 2020 is the year of me taking tour journals and tunnels. This is the Big Savage Tunnel, and we will ride through it together because that is what I feel like doing. And here we go. Big Savage Tunnel. It is, I think, about 3,000 feet. So, you know, it feels, if I may compare it to the Paw Paw Tunnel, it feels similar in length. The distinction, of course, is you can ride it. It is a nice, smooth, not paved, I don't think. It is hard to tell. It behaves as much like paved. If it is not, it is gloriously restored. Really, you can tell a lot of work went into the restoration of this the bunch of years ago that they did this. And of course, one of the things that they do to keep it safe is to close it during the winter months. I believe it's a maintenance issue, if not a safety issue. You were going through Big Savage Mountain, if memory serves. It's called Big Savage Tunnel. So if it's a Big Savage Mountain, it's because it's near it. We are close to the highest point in all of Pennsylvania, in fact. The name of the mountain escapes me. However, this is a big deal tunnel. And unfortunately, for you winter fat bike touring curious types, this is not an option in the winter because it is closed usually in the November-December range. You know, it really varies a lot, and often it'll be open in the early spring. It's seasonal. They have, I think, specific times that they look for, that they shoot for, but I think that there are conditions that they also shoot for. Lit here on the inside, which is nice, and so you don't need your lights to make this all work. Substantially cooler in here than it was out in the heat. I am definitely consuming a ton of water today. But, you know, it makes sense. I'm climbing, essentially 25 miles. So it makes sense that I'm going to be A, slow, and B, intaking a bunch of water. I will say, I've certainly seen some more bike tourists than I have on the C&O. Of course, it's a Friday, so, I think it's more likely to see folks on Fridays than middle of the week. But some folks coming the opposite direction, which, as I've chatted with folks, of course, Doug Regner, his supposition, and he works for the Gap, essentially, and his supposition is that there are more people that do that direction than the direction that I'm going right now. And I think that jibes with my experience too. So I feel like I've probably said that on every Gap tour journal I've ever done. But it's a question I get all the time. Which direction should you go? So I'm agnostic on it. I used to say that I preferred going this direction. I think that I do still have a slight preference just because it's usually easier for me logistically. But I also love banging out this climb on the first day and making that, getting that over with. And then it's kind of nice low grade to flat all the way to the end of the trail in Pittsburgh. And the opposite direction, I've done it a few times where during snotty weather, you're going up a little bit of an incline, and in the rain it's a little soft, but the same would be true coming from Cumberland. So, going uphill on any surface like this with a little bit of moisture in it, it's not going to be super ideal anyways. So, in any event, we are almost through the tunnel here. It was not going super fast, as you can probably imagine. Bike, by the way, riding like a champ. Really kind of nice to have a fully retuned bike with everything. From the very rainy Eastern Continental Divide in the tunnel, thank goodness, this is the all-tunnel tour journal. It's all echoes all the time for you. I get to the end of the Big Savage, as you heard, and it looked real ugly out, like in a way that wasn't the case on the other side of the tunnel when I first came in, which was interesting. Went to check my weather app and forgot, hey, sorry, no cell service in this area of the trail. So I was going on instinct, and I was like, okay, well, I know that there's one more tunnel. So I just pushed, and I would say maybe 200 meters from the tunnel, the rain started in earnest. And then, of course, because something dropped off of my bike, my mirror, my mirror. So I had to go back and get that, unfortunately. But all good. I am moist, but I was moist before anyways. So I'm just gonna ride this out. I'm not in a hurry. I'm more than halfway to the end of my day here, end of my 44. And, there's just no point getting wet. Also, I don't mind letting the trail drain a touch after this rain goes through. This is unfortunately a stretch of the Gap that I think handles rain the worst that I'm about to go through. It just kind of drains off in ruts at times. So, that's fine. No big deal. I think I'm just going to ride this out. I'm had plenty of food, so I don't even need to snack. Kept plenty of water in me, so I'm feeling good about that. And it's a good opportunity to sit down and cool off a little bit. So I'll take advantage of that. I feel badly for the folks who are behind me. I mentioned there's what I'm presuming is a father and daughter crew, and I saw her in one of the tunnels, not Big Savage, but the one before that. I think she was waiting on her riding companion, and they are definitely, unless they're in the Big Savage right now, which I'm hoping they're getting caught in this pretty heavy rain. I don't mind getting hit by rainstorms like this, but boy, it's nice to have shelter, especially since I think that a little bit of a breeze and it's gonna, temperature will drop a little bit. Good time for a break. Been listening to a podcast, one of my favorite podcasts. If you ever need a podcast recommendation that is not the Pedalshift Project, Hit Parade. Hit Parade is a monthly show where it's very chart driven, and every episode check out that thunder. They do, it's thematic, you know, it'll be an artist or a theme of music. And this month, yacht rock, not a genre I'm into, but interesting. It's always interesting. So shouts to Chris Malampy and Hit Parade. All right, that's it from the top of the world. Not really, just the top of the Eastern Continental Divide. About 20-ish, what are we thinking here? 19 miles or so until camp. So very chill downhill glide into camp is the rest of the day. Here on day one of the 4x44 Gap Loop. From Myersdale, Pennsylvania, mile marker 32. And the sun is out, it is warm. I'm tired. That was a fair amount of activity to get up the hill, but I am now going downhill and going quite fast. So I know this last 12 miles or so to Rockwood will go very fast. I knew that it would be the most energy that I would put out in any of the 4 days would be this one. Also, day one of a tour where I'm going up a hill, you know, it kind of makes sense that this is how it would all end up going. Feeling a little bit of not a headache, but just sort of noticing something. So I don't know if it's some electrolyte electrolyte imbalance, words. And so I've been going with just clean, fresh water, which, oh, by the way, update on the water situation. So here in Myersdale, the water is on, so that's very good to know. What I'm noticing is that there is no consistency between towns. Some towns yes, sometimes some towns no, but good to have the ability to water up here. I'm going to be rolling into Rockwood, I would think, maybe I'll drink one bottle of water between here and there, but that's not bad at all. So I'm going to have a full 4 liters of water in my bladder there, and I will have, probably another liter in water bottles, so I should be in great shape. Plus I have some nice cold things, including a frozen bottle of water, which I will definitely be partaking in. Toying with the idea of taking something for the head, but I have read and consumed information that suggests that taking ibuprofen or such things during exercise, not the greatest maneuver. So because it's not that big of a deal, I don't think I will, but I am going to start hitting the electrolyte pills. I have sweat a tremendous amount today. And I have noticed in the past that if I am feeling a little, maybe sluggish is the wrong word, but if I'm not feeling quite right, especially if I'm achy, it tends to mean that I have an electrolyte deficiency. And so I think I will have one of those before I get going too much. We all know what happens when Timmy does not take his electrolyte pills after a long, hot day. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I got a whole fresh new supply of them to supplement the dregs that I had left. So I'm not going to have that problem tonight. All right, well, very quiet. I saw the father-daughter team go off towards their campground here. So that's been they're peeling off here. I'm going to keep going. It'll be interesting to see if there's anybody at Husky Haven, which is the campground that I actually talk about it all the time, but I have actually never been there. I've always, said, oh, I'm going to stay there, and I always end up going further. Well, not today. I'm going to rock the Husky Haven for the first time. I've stayed at their the house. It was a really rainy, nasty day, and my camping budget, my lodging budget, I had been doing free camping during that trip the whole time, and I was like, well, I will spend $50 for this right here, and it worked out great. I had this whole house to myself, which was a little more than I needed, but that's how they did it. So tonight, however, I will do camping because I'm looking forward to that. Should be a glorious night. Now that this rain rolled through, I think that the temperatures are a little cooler. It might get down to the low 60s tonight, so I have all the stuff that I need for that. Definitely will do the tent And I believe they've got firewood and stuff like that too. I don't know how full service they're going to be. We hear during COVID time, but according to their website, sure as heck seems like they're rolling with their normal services. So we'll see how this all goes. I will say I think that I've seen the level of activity from tourists that I would expect on an ordinary weekend. I'll be interested in talking more with people and seeing what they think if they've ridden before. A lot of first timers that I've been talking to, which is good. From mile marker 44, go Orange, it is the 4x44 gap loop. I keep forgetting the name of it. Gap loop 4x44. It's the tour journal for this fine program. Had a rocket tied to the back of the bike. I will tell you, on the pro side of the the Cumberland to Pittsburgh direction for this trail is the amazing feeling of superhero-ness that you get from the Eastern Continental Divide down to at least here in Rockwood. It is amazing. After a slog at about 7 to 8 miles per hour, you're rocket shipping. You're 12 to perhaps even 15, probably 12, fully loaded, and it's a lot of fun. And if you recall, last year when I did the DC to Cincinnati trip, it was the same story, but I was originally going to stay here in Rockwood, but I felt so good and I was going so fast that I was just like, well, let's make some time up, man. Let's do it. And that ended up paying some real benefits to me, because it was part of the way that I made up an entire day that later I cashed in a very big way when I had some crazy weather and I ended up wild camping in that town in Ohio because the headwinds were just too much and there was a huge storm coming. So sometimes when the trail gives it to you, you should take it, especially on a longer tour. You never know when you can use an extra day, especially when you're a fool like me and never bake in 0 days into your long tours. I've realized that over the years as I look back on some of my trips, I never really bake in 0 days. The only time I ever did that was on the big West Coast tour. I stayed in San Francisco for, I want to say 2 or maybe 3 days. And I needed to. I remember I was cooked on that trip. And I'm not sure if I would have been able to make it as quickly or as efficiently for the rest of the trip all the way down to the Mexican border without having a few days off. And I think that most sane people do that. They bake in those extra days. I think there are some folks that do it 1 day off every week or 1 day off every 4 days or something along those lines. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I think that if you've got time, that's an ideal thing. That's a good thing. When you're someone like me that tends to be like, great, I have 4 days, I'm going to bike every single one of them. Or I have 14 days, I'm going to bike every single one of them and make it to Cincinnati. I mean, it's you just do what you do. That's why I always say ride your ride. One of the many reasons why I do. Here we are at Husky Haven. Let me just say, I've never stayed here on the campground. So let me describe it a little bit. And if I have on prior shows, forgive me, I'll repeat myself. The campground is here on the side of the river where the trail is. The town of Rockwood, Pennsylvania is on the other side of the Castleman River. And one thing I will say, if you are an AT&T cell phone user, there is no cell phone signal here. And that is the one big ding I would give for this site. There is a cell phone tower within, I think, view of here. They say there's cell phone service, and I'm sure there is. It may be Verizon, it may be somebody else, but it's not AT&T, which is the carrier that I use. So that's the only thing I have. The campground is immaculate. It's just really, really nice. I mean, here in COVID times, there's nobody here. I mean, straight up, there's just nobody here. And that's interesting. I've seen a few people go by. I think more people are tending to stay in Myersdale. I'm seeing somebody go by with panniers right now, in fact. That seems to be the place where a lot of people go. I like it from a spacing perspective. I think that this mile marker 44 makes some sense. But in any event, this has always looked really good every time I've gone by it. As I mentioned before, I stayed at the main house, and there's actually a couple of guys there right now who seem to be on a bike tour. They were on the porch enjoying a couple of beers while I used the bathhouse. So it's a little inconvenient, but it's actually kind of a neat system when all is said and done. So, here we are very much on the trail. It's away from the town. You don't have that in the influence of the town, but you're super close to it. So you've got easy access to Wi-Fi, super important if you don't have a cell phone signal like I did. And the bathhouses, and those are immaculately clean. So the town, I've mentioned this before, I get eyes here, and I don't understand quite why that is. I think that it just is the nature of the town. There's deep suspicion of people on bikes. I don't know what it is. But I didn't go to the little corner store where I tend to get the most of that, and that's fine. I'm sure everybody here is super, super cool and super fine. I just, I think maybe it's a me problem. But in any event, the campground's great. I have just had an enormous dinner, which I'm super grateful for. I really definitely needed to eat. I had plenty of food during the day. I had a sandwich at lunch in Frostburg, and I sort of, ate as I went along. Peanut butter crackers and the usual garbage that I eat when I'm on tour, for the simple calories. But I will say, for those of you, there was at least one person who said that I was eating garbage the last time I was eating. And you were right. I had a salad as my main part of dinner tonight because I had the cold bag, which I am again going to heartily endorse as a touring friend for you. If you're going to ride heavy anyways, the cold bag it can be very helpful, and I'm enjoying the fruits of those of the cold things in there. My coffee is going to be great tomorrow. I'm super excited about that. I've also got the frozen bottle of water, which is still largely frozen, so I'll have a nice cold bottle of water later. And there are some other adult beverages in there, which are probably more than I need, and I will make sure that I don't imbibe too much. If you can hear this, there is a child in a motorized, I don't know what that is. It's kind of like a pickup truck. It's kind of not. I don't know. That's what rich kids had when I was a kid. I think that they're cheaper now. Anyways, he seems to be having fun. I am very excited that I called it here at 44. I was kind of ready to call it a day. Again, downside, no cell phone signal. So, of course, I can't share. Many of you may be thinking, Tim, are you alive? Well, now, like physically now, when I'm speaking, now that you're hearing this, I got back. But it is a weird thing to be disconnected. I am a very connected person. Many of you like to tour without connectivity. I am not that for a variety of reasons, but I will say I have not done a lick of work today. I had to do one thing for work-related purposes. I had to send one email this morning, which was basically, I can't do this because I'm on vacation. Peace out, bye. And that's been pretty good. So one of the other things that I can take advantage of with a lack of connectivity is I have a couple of audiobooks, one of which by one of my favorite authors, Chuck Klosterman, put out a new book. I don't remember the name of it, but I'm looking forward to quote-unquote reading it. I don't know if we're allowed to say reading audiobooks, but I will be reading it / listening to it, I think, tonight and into tomorrow. He's gotten weirder, which I like. So that's, I think, everything that I've got to say about day one. I'm very, very pleased with how it turned out. I'm very, very excited about day two. I've got precisely 44 miles by design until we hit Connellsville tomorrow. I could leave early. I could leave late. I don't think that there's much in the way of issues with getting out of here. I don't know what the checkout time is, but I don't get the impression that they would have problems with me staying later, so we'll see how that all goes. All right, day one in the books. Stuff. statistics for day one of the 4x44 Gap Loop. Miles biked 44, go orange. Food resupplies 1, rattlesnakes 1, rattlesnake bites 0, inactive water fountains 1, big tunnels ridden through 3, chilly beverages at camp very earned 2, flats 0. And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedalshift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedalshift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community, expanding into live shows and covering new tours like the Kessel Run. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one-shot and annual options. If you're not into the small monthly thing, check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lean, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Didis, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadis, Chris Barron, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Stuart Buchan, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Byron Patterson, Joachim Robert, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Henkel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Dan Gebhardt, Jody Zeranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Vigel, Greg Middlemas, Connie Moore, William Gothman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latois Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Tom Bilch, Ronald Piroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBlanc, Ari Messinger, David Grotke, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Letko, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCulloch, John Hickman, Jack Smith, Carl Presso, David Neves, Patty Louise, Terry Fitzgerald, Peter Steinmetz, Timothy Fitzpatrick, Dave Fletcher, James Stratakis, and David Neves. And thanks to all past and anonymous members for making this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.